The cornfields whispered in the wind that evening, tall golden stalks swaying under a sky painted with the last hues of daylight. Somewhere along a dusty path between the farmhouse and the road, 12-year-old Tanisha Jones disappeared. She was wearing hand-me-down sneakers and a faded pink backpack. Her mother said she never missed the walk home, not once. Tanisha wasn't a troublemaker. She wasn't bold. She was careful, quiet. Raised by a single mother who worked as a housekeeper for one of the wealthiest Amish families in Lancaster County, she had learned early how to keep her head down and stay out of the way. But that night, she didn't come home. Her mother, frantic, called the local sheriff's office. But when Chief Walter Craig, a man with a stiff jaw and stiffer prejudice, arrived, he didn't ask many questions, didn't search the fields, didn't even write down the color of Tanisha's clothes. Maybe she ran away, he said, arms crossed. Girls like her get bored easy. No Amber Alert, no volunteers, just silence. But silence doesn't mean there isn't a story. In a place where the truth is often buried deeper than the corn roots, one question still lingers. What really happened to Tanisha Jones? If this story pulled at something inside you, a sense of injustice, of curiosity, of truth long hidden, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment below. Do you believe the system really protects all children equally? And don't forget to subscribe. We share real, powerful stories that deserve to be heard. This is just the beginning. Stay with us. The truth is closer than you think. Chief Walter Craig stood beneath the rusted county sheriff's sign, scribbling half-hearted notes into a weathered pad. The sun had already dipped behind the cornfields, casting long shadows across the gravel lot outside the station. Tanisha's mother stood a few feet away, trembling hands pressed against her chest, eyes wide with fear. "She never stays out this late," she whispered. "Please, please, you have to look for her." But Craig barely looked up. He chewed on a toothpick, nodding slowly. Not out of concern, but calculation. "Kids run off," he said flatly. "Especially ones from broken homes." She flinched like he'd slapped her. "We're not broken," she said, her voice cracking. "She's a good girl. She's never—" Craig raised a hand, silencing her. He turned toward his patrol car, muttering to his deputy. "She was seen getting into a stranger's car," he lied, loud enough for the report recorder to catch. "Maybe some city slicker passing through. We'll put out a notice." No one had seen any such thing. But in towns like this, where people feared their sheriff more than they trusted him, the truth bowed to authority. What many didn't know, or pretended not to, was that Craig carried a past heavy with shadows. 2 years earlier, he'd been quietly investigated after a young black teenager was found with a broken jaw following an altercation in a holding cell. No charges were filed. The deputy report cited insufficient evidence and aggressive behavior from the teen. Now, with Tanisha's name scrawled in his report, Craig sealed her fate with a few strokes of his pen. No urgency, no plan, no search party. Just a file tucked away under runaway. No one questioned him, but someone would. And when they did, they would uncover far more than a missing child. If this moment made your blood boil, or your heart ache, give this video a like. Have you ever witnessed power used to silence truth? Share your thoughts below. Subscribe to hear the full story, because what happens next will change everything. The black sedan pulled into the gravel lot beside the sheriff's station, tires crunching against the stones in the quiet morning. Eleanor Marks, a woman in her early 60s with silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun, stepped out and took a moment to scan her surroundings. The wide Pennsylvania sky stretched overhead, but the air here felt heavy, like secrets clung to the wind. Eleanor wasn't new to these kinds of towns. She'd spent the better part of her career investigating cases that others ignored, misconduct buried beneath polite smiles and local business warnings. This wasn't her first rural station, and she doubted it would be her last. Inside, the sheriff's office smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. Chief Walter Craig stood behind the counter, looking exactly as she expected. Pressed uniform, pale skin weathered by age and ego, and eyes that measured people before they spoke. His smile didn't reach them. "Agent Marks," he said, extending a hand without warmth. "Bit far from Washington, aren't you?" She shook at once, firm and brief. "I'm following up on a disappearance that may be connected to another case from a decade ago. The girl's name is Tanisha Jones." Craig's expression barely shifted. "Already filed it. Classic runaway, according to witnesses. I'd like to review those witness statements." "They're sealed under local jurisdiction." Eleanor met his gaze. "You and I both know that won't hold up." Craig's jaw clenched, just a twitch, but enough. His tone shifted, a sliver of warning tucked beneath the casual drawl. "Be careful, Agent. This town doesn't like outsiders poking around. Folks here, they don't forget." She didn't blink. "Neither do I." There was a silence between them then, not hostile, not loud, but sharp, like two animals circling the same ground, both knowing one of them didn't belong. And Eleanor had no intention of leaving until she found out why a little girl vanished without a trace, and why the man in front of her seemed so eager to make it disappear too. The corn stretched tall and unyielding, rows upon rows of golden blades rustling like whispers that never reached the surface. Eleanor Marks walked slowly along the narrow dirt path that split the fields, her boots sinking lightly into the soft earth. The sun was low now, painting long shadows and casting a quiet hush over the farmland. Earlier that day, she'd tried speaking with the townsfolk. Shopkeepers, gas station clerks, even a local preacher. Everyone smiled too politely, eyes darting elsewhere. No one saw anything. No one knew anyone. It was the kind of silence that didn't come from ignorance. It came from fear. That was until Samuel, a boy no older than 15, stepped out from behind a feed truck after dusk. He was Amish, plain clothes, straw hat, and wide, wary eyes. "You're looking for the girl," he said softly. "I know where she was last seen." Now Eleanor followed the boy's silent lead, deeper into the corn. They didn't speak. The only sound was the soft crunch of stalks underfoot and the breath between heartbeats. After 5 minutes, the boy stopped. He pointed to a small clearing just off the path. Nestled among the stalks, weather-worn and nearly hidden, was a small wooden cross, no taller than a child's knee. Carved into it were the letters TJ, hastily etched by hand. "She used to walk this way home," the boy whispered. "I saw her here, the night she vanished." Eleanor knelt by the cross. The ground around it was disturbed. Not freshly, but not ancient either. She scanned the area and caught it, a partial boot print in the soil, wide and square-toed, standard police issue. A few feet away, tangled in the low wire of a broken fence, something fluttered. She pulled it free. A strip of dark fabric, rough, with the faint imprint of a departmental patch. Her pulse quickened. This wasn't just a lead. This was evidence, and it had been left to rot in the dirt. When she turned to ask Samuel if he'd told anyone else, he was already gone, disappeared into the rows of corn like a ghost, leaving only the truth behind. And the field, once quiet, felt different now, as if it was holding its breath. The evidence came together like storm clouds, slow, ominous, and impossible to ignore. Back at the FBI field office, Eleanor Marks laid the strip of uniform fabric beside the bootprint photos and the silent testimony of that small wooden cross. Everything pointed to one man, Chief Walter Craig. His boots matched the tread. The fabric was confirmed as regulation from the county sheriff's department, and the location was clear, the field where Tanisha was last seen. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Not in a town that had spent years burying the truth beneath silence and fear. Then the phone rang. A soft voice spoke on the other end. "I was there, 10 years ago." Eleanor met her the next day in the back pew of an old Lutheran church just outside town. Hannah Brenner, now 27, was an Amish woman who had left the community years ago. Her hands shook as she held a worn Bible, but her eyes burned with memory. "She screamed," Hannah whispered. "The other girl, Shauna. 10 years ago, I saw Chief Craig force her into his truck behind the Grange Hall. He said if I ever spoke, God would punish me, and so would he." Eleanor didn't speak. She just pressed her recorder forward. Hannah nodded and kept talking. It was the missing piece. Within 48 hours, Eleanor secured a federal warrant. The arrest came at dawn. 2 unmarked vehicles and a federal task team rolled into the sheriff's station. Eleanor led the charge, flanked by 2 agents. Chief Craig stood outside, sipping his morning coffee like nothing had changed, until he saw her badge and the cuffs. "This is a mistake," he barked. "No," Eleanor said, her voice steady. "The mistake was thinking no one would listen." He was handcuffed in front of the entire department, his face pale, rage simmering behind his eyes. For the first time, the town saw him not as a protector, but as a man exposed. People gathered quietly across the street. Some whispered, some wept, and somewhere, among the rustling cornfields, the wind shifted. The truth, once buried, had risen, and it was louder than fear. It was late afternoon when they found her, in the crumbling remains of a weathered barn behind Chief Craig's home, overlooked during the initial searches years ago. Tanicia's story came to light, not with shouts or sirens, but in the quiet creak of the door opening, in the stillness of dust hanging in sunbeams. She had been there the whole time. Her mother was the first to be told, gently, with care. No cameras, no crowd, just a folded blanket, an officer's steady voice, and the soft rustle of wind in the trees. News traveled fast through the county, and something unexpected happened. The next morning, the Amish community, usually known for privacy and silence, held a special memorial service for Tanicia. Not in a chapel or a graveyard, but in the same field where she had last been seen, where the small wooden cross still stood among the tall stalks. There were no microphones, no speeches, only candles laid out in a circle, and the quiet sound of names whispered in prayer. Eleanor Marks stood apart from the crowd, coat buttoned to the neck, eyes fixed on the wooden cross. The corn around her swayed gently, tall and golden, the same way it had the night Tanicia vanished. She stepped forward alone, reaching into her coat pocket. In her palm rested her old FBI badge, worn at the edges, its shine dulled by time. She crouched beside the cross and laid the badge gently at its base. Not as a resignation, not even as a goodbye, but as a promise to every child who was never believed, to every voice that was silenced too soon, to every town that hid its shame in plain sight. As she stood, the light caught the edges of the badge, glinting like a whisper of something sacred. Behind her, the people remained silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. For the first time in years, the silence meant something else. It meant remembrance. It meant change. The wind carried through the corn once more, soft and steady, as if it too was breathing easier. And though Tanicia would never walk those fields again, she had spoken. And this time, the world heard her. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in a quiet town isn't a storm, it's silence. This story reminds us that justice isn't always loud, and truth doesn't always come fast. It teaches us that ignoring wrongdoing doesn't make it disappear, it lets it grow. For older generations who've seen decades of change, this is a reminder that the fight for fairness is not finished. It's passed down. It continues in small places, in forgotten corners, and through people who refuse to look away. Eleanor Marks didn't storm in with sirens. She listened. She looked closer, and she believed the voice no one else would. That's something we can all do. In our families, our neighborhoods, our country, we can choose to speak when others stay quiet. We can choose to care. And maybe, just maybe, the world shifts because of it. If this story stirred something in you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe justice always finds its way, even when it takes years? Let us know. And if you believe stories like this matter, real, human, and full of truth, please support our channel. Like, subscribe, and stay with us for the next story, because the truth deserves to be heard, always.